Management tools of an MPA are everything we do to achieve protection. You need to know about the species, the habitats, the ecosystems, human activities as well. This comprises measures to supervise activities to avoid certain impacts, restoration, for example, and there's always a little bit of monitoring and policing to enforce the rules. This is all comprised in a management plan. These activities are thus programmed. We draw up a management plan and then implement it. A few dozen years ago, the state decided on protection all by itself. It decided on strict protection measures. We've evolved a great deal now. We've moved towards more participatory activities. When a state decides and polices, things don't work. The stakeholders have also learned how to discuss these protection measures. So today, in most countries in the world, these stakeholders are familiar with the topics and can speak on them.
We really want to get people's experiences, to hear what people are doing, and also to think of where we go from here. You know, I mean, it's not enough to be saying we've got some great tools. It's how they're applied. And when you look at the state of the global marine environment, and particularly in some local situations, time's not on our side. And so this conference, this Congress is so timely, and it should be about bringing those experiences to the fore and looking to the future and looking at what that roadmap should be to accelerate the progress and the quality and the ambition of what we're all trying to do together.
Managing both sustainably and officially a protected marine area means protecting the biological environment, protecting the resources, and also protecting the human activities and their activities that depend on the resources.
It means involving the people of the place right from the beginning, from the moment an MPA is thought about, defining what they want from an MPA, what are the services that the sea provides that must be protected and preserved to ensure their well-being and livelihoods into the future.
With my organization, what we do is we support the communities in empowering them to do the work on their own. And the way we do that is by helping to train them so that they're able to do management plans, they're able to implement the programs, as well as to monitor their work, evaluate their work, and make adaptive changes.
The people who are living in the areas are the important body to effectively working in the process for the protection. The government here should support and educate and aware the local community, and also supporting them to help the government and help the country for the protection and effectively managing the marine protected areas.
Managing the MPA is really managing ourselves. The MPA is there already managed by someone, maybe God or nature. What we need to manage is ourselves, people. We need to manage our people and how to use the resources of that MPA. It's not, the MPA is not an issue, it's not a problem. The problem is with people. So managing the MPA is really managing the population, the community that is relying on that.
Marine protected areas are created for a given purpose. It's therefore important to justify the existence of this MPA in the field based on concrete data vis-à-vis the public, which may be upset in terms of their habits in that given area, vis-à-vis decision makers and politicians who provide the financing for these MPAs. It's important to prove that things really work. Here we're at an international meeting. We're not trying to achieve global harmonization, rather to learn from each other, show people what we're doing, discuss things with people from other countries. Then indeed, at a national level, it's important to harmonize things so that evaluations are consistent. We have common borders as well. On the scale of the Mediterranean, we need to be able to compare our evaluations to ascertain whether overall, on a biogeographic level, the networks are really working. We need to see whether certain goals are difficult to attain and hence require a national plan of action. We need to ensure that our networks are ever more operational. We collect a lot of monitoring data over time. On the basis of this data, we calculate indicators to see how things are evolving over time. And then, of course, we can analyze the situation to see whether we are drawing close to our objective or whether, on the contrary, we have not achieved it at all. We need to see whether the MPA is helping to attain these goals. Throughout this process, partnership between scientists and managers is very important. We need to establish the link between the scientific data collected in the field and the analysis that will be used for management. I started to take an interest in Malpelo Island when I was very young, in 1987. I'm a diver and I went to dive off the island and fell in love with it. So I started to go there more often, although it's a long way away. It takes 40 hours by boat. I noticed there were a lot of fishing boats anchored over the coral reefs, surrounded by sharks. I decided to invest time and efforts in the island to turn it into a marine protected area and a World Heritage Site. What's most important and difficult is the controlling of illegal fishing. Fishing was stopped in the area. This entailed educating the fishermen, explaining the importance of marine protected areas for their very livelihood. In this respect, Malpelo is important for Colombia. 9.2% of the coastal waters of Colombia are protected, and Malpelo now is part of this marine protected area. 4 countries signed a convention, Panama, Costa Rica, Colombia, and Ecuador, to fully protect these parts of the Pacific Ocean and to work together with the fishing sector to ensure that fishing becomes sustainable in our seas.
Charlotte, Matt, hi. Could you introduce yourself, Charlotte?
I work for a Swiss foundation called FIBA, Fondation Internationale du Vent d'Arguin, and I am in charge of the MPA program of FIBA, We are working on establishing and supporting the management of MPAs in West Africa, means the area between Mauritania down to Sierra Leone, including the Cape Verde Islands.
I'm Matt Rand. I'm the Director of Global Ocean Legacy for the Pew Charitable Trust. We are working on a series of very large marine reserves around the world. The marine reserves we're working on are over 200,000 square kilometers, and we're working with local citizens, local scientists and government officials to help try to establish a new generation of marine reserves, very large, fully protected marine reserves.
Charlotte, could you tell us more about the kind of reserves you are working on?
We are working mostly on small and middle-sized MPAs. Our largest, let's say biggest MPA is the National Park of Bandarguin in Mauritania. That is around 1,200,000 hectares large. But most of the others are really small. Sometimes you have less than 10 square kilometers. We have large, let's say, we have diverse type of MPAs. Some are managed by local people, others are managed by the government.
Yeah, it's important to work with local citizens, local scientists, and the government very closely in the establishment of any marine reserve.
In those very remote places, is there some pressure?
For commercial fishing or deep sea mining or some other extractive activity, there's always pressure. There's no place on the planet where it's low-hanging fruit or easy to do.
So what does it take to achieve a Aichi target? Big reserves or small reserves?
If we're going to protect our ocean from the threats of, say, overfishing, where we've lost up to 90% of our large predatory fish, or from ocean acidification, we need a series of very large, fully protected marine reserves, but we also need to have very localized marine reserves.
Yeah, I would add that Target 11 is not only about having 10%, we also have to have equitably managed areas. So we need to involve local people, we need to take into consideration their needs, and that's why I think that locally small areas are also very important. It's really complementary. I think we need both so that we can have those two ideas.
Okay, Charlotte, Matt, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
The Prud'homme, these corporations of professional fishermen, were set up about 1,000 years ago, specific to the Mediterranean. They were created by the fishermen themselves who wanted to manage their own affairs. There were rules and regulations on the length of the nets, the mesh size, regulations governing activities between fishermen, with a view to settling conflicts between both fishermen or fishermen and pleasure craft. In San Rafael, we have about 20 fishermen. The non-fishing area was set up at the instigation of the fishermen in 2003. We set aside the best fishing area we had off our coastline and used it to create a reserve, a sort of a protected area, a non-fishing area where the fish could spawn and reproduce in the absence of professional fishermen. The partnership between Planet Mer Association and the San Rafael Prud'homme was something requested by the Prud'homme itself, the idea being to work together on the future of the fishing zone. There are three goals. First of all, to monitor the area. Second, to move towards a more evolved status, and also to make the most of the fishermen's knowledge. It's up to the fishermen themselves to say how they want to manage their fishing activities. The rules devised by the fishermen will be the ones that are best respected. The reserve is doing very well. We're beginning to see the first positive effects. It's not after 10 years that you see the effects of a protected area. It takes 15, 20 years or more. But the first signs are very positive. Indeed, it is in our interest to have created this zone.
So national parks are, of course, the jewels in the crown, as it were, of the conservation movement in France. There are 10 of them, including 3 marine national parks. Their aim, of course, is first and foremost to understand and protect the spaces which they are in charge of. After that, to welcome the public, because their mission is a didactic one and one of reception. And then, since the recent legislation concerning national parks, even more than before, our mission is to support economic development in the sense of sustainable development. Concerning Guadeloupe, for example, we work in very close collaboration with the professional fishermen. We work in close collaboration with all the others who work with the sea. We also have in our French national parks our own know-how, our own experience, which we shall naturally try to share with other people. And also some fine projects, for example, the reintroduction of the sea cow, this marine mammal that disappeared over a century ago and that we're trying to reintroduce in the Guadeloupe. This will be a world first, we hope, in a year or two's time.
The booth that is here today is a combination. OSPAR, the OSPAR Convention is almost like an umbrella. It's a collection of countries who've come together and they've agreed that they want to establish a network of marine protected areas. And then within the OSPAR maritime area, there are 2 active projects where the Maya project and the Panache project are looking more in detail about how to network the managers of protected areas. So these are 2 particular regions working within the OSPAR maritime area to look in more detail at how these networks can be made more human, networks of people rather than networks of just biological resources.
Well, today we've been looking at tools for management and enforcement, and I think today's demonstrates the real value of a congress like this to bring everyone together. What it's shown us is that there's some great thinking, great ideas, new developments within the community, but also we've still got some of the major challenges we've had a few years ago to tackle. So there's some old things that are still with us that we've got to do more on, but we're also scaling up and we're starting to move forward, which is tremendously positive and great news.
This was a very full day. Of course, there are lots of ideas which are not necessarily new, but which we take forward each time. And then we've heard some other ideas, rather newer ideas, about the way of apprehending things. We hear people say that associating the stakeholders is important, but let's not forget the institutions. The stakeholders are not just associations and fishermen and people like this. We've also heard things about technological progress which could help us to go forward, but at the same time, this requires much more precise data, so we can see prospects for doing better, for going faster, and at the same time the difficulties that this raises every time. The question of funding too, and the questions of the formalization of governance. We talked about that today, although it's tomorrow's topic, but the 2 are of course linked. The tools for management today, and then tomorrow the questions of governance and partnership.